The full-time whistle has blown at Murrayfield, and Scotland and Ireland, the two teams coming into the match that still had ambitions of a Grand Slam, the only two teams that had that possibility, now two become one after the full-time whistle. And here are my thoughts immediately following the game. Give me your thoughts in the comments down below. Give the video a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and here comes the score. 18 to Scotland, 32 to Ireland. Domination by the men in green. And how would I just summarise that? Ireland are very good. There you go. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I'll see you on the next one. Now, impressive, professional, championship winning. They look hard to stop, don't they? A long way to go yet. They've got to beat France at home. And that's no gimme. But they look ominously good. Really, really impressive at that. Yeah, lots to talk about. I'll give some top line headlines first. And like I say, give me yours down below. Just again, 2 weeks on the bounce. That anthem, Flower of Scotland in Murrayfield, is just something very, very special. I love this competition. And that is just one moment of it that I can't get enough of that. Inject the Scottish anthem in Scotland into my veins. And was anyone else cutting onions when Sir Chris Hoy, Knight of the Realm, no less, and rightly so, for all of his endeavours. And now more than any time as an athlete, the struggle and the sacrifice and everything that he's making right now with his health. So lovely to see him. What a reception he got by the Murrayfield crowd. That was quite special. And Rob Wainwright representing the My Doddy Foundation as well. Fair play. And all the superstars were out. Gerard Butler was in the house. I like that. Andrew Cotter on comms this game on the BBC in the UK. I really quite like him. So at one point, a Scottish player said, "Effing hit him." And normally at that point, the commentator, normally when you watch telly, has to say, "Apologies for the language." Andrew Cotter, "Effing hit him." Some wise words of advice there. I quite like it. I will say, because I watched the game at Twickenham yesterday, and now I've watched this one on the BBC, I am getting kind of Brian Habana withdrawals, though. I'm kind of missing that Sage advert. I need Brian to remind me for about the 4,000th time that he realised one of his opponents was a little slower to turn. But apparently, actually, some people have said that Brian Habana Sage advert is popping up in and amongst my videos. So I'd love to think that you've just watched it, or it might come up very soon. That'd be nice. Ronan O'Gara as well. I quite like him as a pundit. I like that he just goes into crazy levels of depth, and just once you turn him on, he just goes. But what I like about that is Ronan O'Gara is exactly who proper rugby fans would love to hear from, because he gives you proper in-depth rugby substance. He doesn't talk in platitudes. And I will compare that to one moment sort of in the second half where Andrew Cotter, and I've said I really like him, and he's obviously doing this because his bosses have told him to. Ronan O'Gara is not going to do anything the BBC bosses tell him to do. Ronan O'Gara is going to do what Ronan O'Gara wants to do. But the commentator said, well, of course, during the Six Nations, we have lots of people watching who don't really watch rugby. So Sam Warburton, why don't you explain the breakdown for those people? And I thought, what are you doing? What, other sports don't do this. Rugby seems to be so obsessed about these mythical new fans that we're apparently going to find. Oh, if Sam Warburton, if you explain the breakdown to Johnny's nan, who never watches rugby otherwise, maybe she'll become a lifelong fan, buy a shirt and be at the next home game. No, look after the people that already love the sport. The millions of people that tune in because we watch it religiously. We do buy the shirts and buy the tickets. Look after us. First and foremost, that's something rugby needs to change. The NFL, the Super Bowl tonight, the NFL does not do that. When you watch the NFL, if you don't know the rules of the NFL, you have to go and work on it to learn them, as it should be. Anyway, I just found that a little bit patronising. But anyway, I'll stick to the positive. As for Ireland, as I say, complete domination. There were periods where Scotland rallied in that match, but Ireland were just too good. Just too good all round. Scrum, they were better. Breakdown, they just rinsed Scotland. And bearing in mind, Scotland had that back row of Ferguson, Darge, Dempsey. I'll come to how I think Ireland do this in a little bit, but that was a bit of a statement from Josh van der Fleer, Caelan Doris, Tyg Byrne. Peter Romani. He's like the Undertaker, Peter Romani. You know, bong. It must be the Scotland game. He rises from the dead, and Ireland managed to resurrect him for another 80 minutes against Scotland. He loves playing against Scotland. Yeah, they had better phase play. They dominated the kicking battle. They just controlled the territory. Their finishing's brilliant, and they just have high-class players. I mentioned Peter Romani. Bundy Aki, at one point he looked like he was in a Halloween costume with like some fake blood and looking like he'd sort of cut his neck. But he gives it a focal point. Jameson Gibson-Park just making good decisions and doing lots of basic things very well. And what a place for Sam Prendergast to be coming into international rugby. Outside Jameson Gibson-Park, inside Bundy Aki. I mean, that's where you'd want. That's like a just sat back in an armchair, relatively speaking, in between those two. But that said, Sam Prendergast looks so smooth as a rugby player. He just moves smoothly. His passing is just crisp and easy. He's like languid and smooth. He's easy to watch. He just looks so fluid with what he does. So his introduction to international rugby is very, very impressive. Andrew Porter is a machine. Another huge shift from him. Although I will say again, what's the point in having Cian Healy on the bench? Why don't you give Jack Boyle some minutes, seeing as you're keeping Andrew Porter on the whole game? But there you go. Yeah, great players. I will also say, and again, if you're Irish, you might take this as some sort of criticism. I do not mean it. I mean this with awe and respect and reverence. Ireland are the most streetwise team in world rugby. They managed to be illegal, by my eyes anyway, tell me if you agree or disagree. They managed to be illegal almost every breakdown. On defence, they just leave people, a tackle, and then, look at me, I've accidentally rolled this way. Oh, am I on the wrong side? Sorry, let me get out of the way. And that half second, 1 second, they managed to do it so well, the referees hardly ever ping them for it. And when they're on attack, you watch Ireland, the first player into a breakdown, straight off their feet, completely stopping the contest. So and that speeds up their own ball. So they are just, and the referee again, I say they're illegal every breakdown. The point is they're not illegal because the referee doesn't blow it. So there must be there's something that Ireland do that means they're just so good at being what appears to me to be like right on the edge, as the best teams and the best players always are. So again, I don't mean it as a criticism. I mean it, I want England to, as an England fan, I want England to do whatever Ireland do and just do the same thing because they're amazing. It's just like, yeah, seems to me to be naughty, but it's brilliant. And yeah, on the New Zealand refs, actually, just one thing. I don't know why we're having the Southern Hemisphere refs coming up to do the Six Nations. I thought Nick Amashakeli from Georgia was brilliant in the England-France game. Thought he just let the game flow. But Ben O'Keefe, I wasn't convinced by last week. And James Dolan, who was the referee today, another one from New Zealand, just not convinced. And I think there is a different way that they referee down there. And on the one hand, you sort of go, well, yeah, it's good to get international games up north where we're getting used to Southern Hemisphere refs a bit more. But the flip side is, well, they should go and do the rugby. Oh, mind you, I suppose English refs and stuff do rugby championship games, don't they? It's just the way it is. Forget I said anything. Doesn't matter. The smartness of Ireland manifests itself in how they build pressure. They build pressure with territorial control. Their kicking game is just on point. The pressure that they build up causes errors, and there were a bunch of them from Scotland today. And then when there's errors, they are clinical at finishing. Their kicking game's great. The decisions, the accuracy, the cohesion to just make it count when the opportunity is there. Oh, that's right. That's another way that Ireland appear to be a little bit illegal, but in a good way. And again, I'm not criticising it, but they're still doing the whole escorting thing. When Scotland were putting kicks up, you saw Scotland getting like really annoyed at the number of times an Irish player just managed to very, very subtly run across and get in the way of a player. You're meant to allow access. And I just don't know. They're just such intelligent rugby players. That's all I can put it down to. They're like a boa constrictor. They just squeeze and squeeze and squeeze. And eventually, before you realise it, it's over. And the perfect example of that is the fact that Scotland had a purple patch either side of half-time. They got to themselves to within, after being 17 points down, to within 6 points. And then Ireland just went, hold on a minute. We've had a bit of a funny 10 minutes here. Right, let's hit reset. Bang, bang, dead, gone, over. Try, game's over. They just shifted through the gears when they needed to. And the scary thing is, I think they've got more gears to go through. 17-0 lead at half-time. The game started with Peter Armani spilling a couple of things, a few errors on both sides, but then one chance, Calvin Nash, try, lovely pass from Sam Prendergast. Scotland had been sucked in, space was out wide, bosh, away it went. They were held up a couple of times, Scotland were getting pumped in the scrums, kicking was on top from Ireland, the pressure told with that interference from Duhan van der Merwe on Calvin Nash. That was a yellow card, and it wasn't a penalty try. He was looking at Calvin Nash. He could have, if he wanted. Well, there you go. Perfect example. Scotland were being a little bit naughty, but they managed to not do it as well as Ireland might have done it. But it was one of those. It did make me laugh. Like there was no noise in the stadium when Duhan van der Merwe did that. There was no noise. If that had been in Dublin, it would have been raging. And the same. It's just I love the crowds at Six Nations games. James Lowe did more James Lowe things, busted through Russell, and then Russell and Graham, unfortunately, with that clash of heads. Hope Darcy Graham's okay. Finn Russell had to miss the rest of the game. Darcy Graham could be out for a little bit longer. And it was starting to look inevitable after a penalty there, 10-0, and then that became 17-0. A dominant scrum led to a Caelan Doris try. But as I say, from 17-0 down to get to 11-17 took so much work from Scotland, and it was really impressive from them. They finally got themselves some territory. That Duhan van der Merwe finish just before half-time, a DVDM special, diving in the air, putting it down just in touch. And now a lot of people said on that, oh, Dave Cherry didn't tap the ball when he kicked it for the 5-metre tap. Come on. I hate it when refs do that. You know that one, when you're playing? Oh, my God. It annoys me now thinking of all the times in the past when someone on the pitch goes to do a quick 5-metre tap and they're holding the ball and then they just touch the ball with their foot. But the ref says, no, the ball has to leave your hand, come up and catch it again before you can play. Just get on with it. Come on, if you're complaining about the fact Dave Cherry didn't properly tap the ball with his foot, then I don't think there's enough joy in your life. It was a great try. That's what I'd rather focus on. So half-time, 5-17. Scotland had a lively start to the second half. 3 points they took twice. And again, this is where they had that build-up of pressure. And this is where I think in the same situation, with that build-up of pressure, with the repeated penalties that Scotland had extracted out of Ireland, Ireland would have gone for the jugular at that point and gone for the 7 points. Scotland went for the 3. Now, I understand it, but the problem is, and you could argue there should have been a yellow card for Ireland at that point. I wouldn't disagree with you, actually. The repeated penalties, probably a yellow card would have been fair. Robbie Henshaw got away with one for the knock-on, but at least on that occasion, to defend the ref, he was consistent with both sides. He did one of those for Scotland and one of those for Ireland. So that was consistent within the game. But I remember thinking at the time, no, Scotland, this is your moment. You have to capitalise. And what do you know? And it's easy to say that in hindsight, isn't it? But I remember thinking it at the time. Scotland managed to get themselves back within 6. They mess up the restart and then boom, try, James Lowe and 24-11. And the game's getting away from you. Only made worse by the fact that Jack Conan scored a try. Lovely little kick from Jameson Gibson Park. The hive mind with Hugo Keenan, who regathered the ball, 2 passes try. It looks simple. So much skill goes into it. As for Scotland, what do you make of them? Well, obviously disrupted by the injuries that went off. They did some nice things. I don't know how much of the Ireland thing is psychological for Scotland, because that's what, 11 in a row where they've lost. And they're a good team with good players. This was the test, wasn't it? This was the test of Scotland. Is another year with these great players going to pass them by? Now, obviously, that's the context here is they were up against a very, very good Ireland team, but I was disappointed with Scotland. And yeah, you can say, oh, well, they didn't take care of business at the breakdown. Their kicking game wasn't good enough, and those fundamentals hurt you. And I know there's a lot of Scotland fans going, oh, I didn't like how the refereed the breakdown and this, but no, you've got to be able to deal with that on the pitch. And good players and good teams do. They deal with it. Scotland didn't deal with it. And yeah, I was really disappointed in their performance. I was so excited about seeing them go because they've got such good players. And they're without a couple, and they had more disruption within the game, but they'll rue that one. I think they came up against a much, much better team on the day, but I think they had in their mind, and Scotland fans will have had, and I thought they were much closer to Ireland than that result and that performance gives you the impression. So back to the drawing board, that game in 2 weeks against England is massive for both teams. And you feel like how this Six Nations Championship and maybe how 2025, bearing in mind it's a British and Irish Lions year, and so the summer tours aren't really going to be proper summer tours, how Scotland and England's year 2025 is defined could be based on the 80 minutes at Twickenham in 2 weeks' time. Scotland win that, and it looks kind of rosy again. England win that, and they could be getting a bit of a momentum. Whichever team loses that game starts to look like the odd good performance is the anomaly, and the losing is where they're at. But hey, we'll see. That's 2 weeks to go till that. Oh, that's the only downside with this. Got two. How good was that weekend of rugby? And we've got a whole 2 weeks to wait for the next one. It's not fair. I'll find some ways to pass the time on the channel. So hit subscribe, give the video a thumbs up. I'll see you on the next one.